Piers Morgan recently hosted organizers with DXE Brighton, which is in UK, on his show Good Morning Britain. Let's take a look.
How many of you eat bread? A serious question.
Yeah, we all eat bread.
You all eat bread. So you're aware that how bread gets made, right?
Yeah.
Wheat crops and all that kind of thing. Ladybirds, bugs, things. Mice, rats, all these other little creatures that are in the crop, they get destroyed in the production of wheat crops, right? So that you guys can munch your bread. Tell me the difference, ideologically, between me wanting a Christmas turkey, right, and you guys eating bread, which you know involves the slaughter of millions of young critters.
Veganism is not about perfection. It's about doing the best that you can. If you look at animal agriculture, it is the single biggest cause of climate change, global warming, deforestation. By far more animals are being hurt through animal agriculture. And what we're doing...
Here's my issue about the vegan thing, right? I've got no problem with anyone being vegan whatsoever, right? I believe absolutely in a right to choice when it comes to food, smoking, drinking, whatever you are. I don't believe in nanny state, right? What I have a real problem with is radical vegans storming into supermarkets like these three did with their mates, right? Terrorising old people doing their shopping for Christmas, right? Young kids trying to go around with their mums and dads in supermarkets, marching into steakhouses and screaming abuse and playing... You know, I could go into their bread stores, right, and I could play little insects being killed on loud music, but I don't because I respect their right to eat bread. I like bread. My problem is this kind of activism actually just does the opposite effect to what they think it does. It doesn't encourage people to be vegans. It has the opposite effect. It annoys everyone and wants me to want to eat more meat as a protest against them. It's the tactics you're using to bully the rest of us into being like you.
Ella, do you feel...
If you want to eat kale and quinoa all day, I'm very happy for you.
I think you deliberately misunderstand because I don't support any sort of violent protest. But I wonder, Ella, if you can explain that this isn't just about a personal choice for a vegan. This is about trying to protect other living creatures. And that's why you feel motivated to be a little bit more evangelical that makes other people comfortable.
Yeah, so because if we ignore it, it's still going to be happening. So all we're doing is exposing what's already happening. And the tactics that we use are inspired by previous social justice movements, so it's completely necessary to do this.
None of your family eats meat at all.
My
point being,
you have to share the views with your family
my point
members
being, if
in
your
order to
family
have them.
members eat meat, why are you not stampeding into their rooms when they're eating their Christmas turkey and protesting at your own families?
Well,
Why has it
Most
gotta be-
vegans do have those conversations with their
They might
families.
have already fought that
Every
battle and
single
lost,
day.
Piers.
So over Christmas lunch, you'll all be standing there with your placards in your own back homes, will you?
No,
Most vegans
playing
have
cows being
conversations
slaughtered.
with their families and with their friends. Every single day, vegans are talking about what's happening to these animals because what they're facing is a total injustice. And the protests that we're doing, these are non-violent protests.
But they're annoying protests. I don't want to go to the supermarket, have you lot howling at me about veganism.
They might be annoying, but what they're doing is exposing the truth. And this is because
what happens in the jungle? In the jungle, animals eat other animals
Yes, but we're
to
not
stay
in the
alive,
jungle.
right?
We're not in the
Well,
wild.
actually, we're doing the same thing as animals do in a jungle. We are eating to survive,
no,
right?
If you're
not
comparing
doing
people to animals, that means you can almost compare everything.
are
to
animals.
No. OK, so what? Ducks rape other ducks. So are you suggesting that's what we should do as well?
A lot of people think that this is backfiring, but actually the number of vegans is increasing, right?
If you want to protest against meat eaters, come to my place with your placards and your music and we'll have a proper chat. Because I'll be there with my meat lovers and we'll be responding fire with fire.
Well, if people want to go and watch Land and Hope and Glory, which is a 45-minute documentary about animal agriculture in the UK, all standard practice, red
I'm
chapter
making a
approved,
okay.
see what it is that
All
you're
right, but I'm
funding.
All right, so several interesting things to unpack there. So first of all, this conversation about these tactics. Aren't you scaring people off? You're bullying people, you're annoying people, this sort of a thing. And I really liked, as DXE organizer Ella put it there, she says, protest has been key to practically every social movement in history. That's true of the US, that's true of the UK. In the UK, we have these women suffragettes, very famously and very effectively led by Emmeline Pankhurst. They were very disruptive. They were very loud in their protesting. They were very disliked. And then there were people very much like Mr. Morgan here who were speaking up against them in a very similar fashion, frankly, a very sexist fashion, very abusive, very, the same kind of concern trolling, like, oh, this isn't the way to do your cause. I support your cause. I support your speech, but why do you got to do it like this? And at the end of the day, what the social scientific research has demonstrated and what history has demonstrated is that it's not so much about the protesters being light, because generally speaking, they are not. But what actually matters is that your message is heard loud and clear. And I certainly think that the actions of DXC Brighton, particularly in conjunction with all the media attention they've gotten around that, have gotten that message out there. And so at the end of the day, people are left to ask, even if it's in a dismissing tone at first. It's like, oh gosh, look at these women. They think women should have the right to vote. That's so ridiculous. Ah ha ha. And then the conversation continues. They're like, yeah, that is ridiculous. Because why is it again? Can somebody help me out with that? Why should, oh yeah, guess there's not an argument for that one. Whoops. Same sort of thing here. So yeah, hurting animals. Oh God, vegans are they're so loud and obnoxious. They say we shouldn't hurt animals. Like, oh yeah, we should definitely hurt animals because reasons, you know? So another point there was like, well, what about your parents? Do your parents eat meat? As if somehow we all have to get every single person in our lives in alignment with us, every person close to us, before we can say a single word publicly. That would just shut down everyone's speech everywhere all the time. Completely absurd notion. Then he makes the further point, well, why aren't you protesting your family dinner? And, you know, it's again done in this kind of concern trolling way that's, you know, annoying on the face of it, but it actually raises an interesting, you know, distinction to be made, and that is between the way we have conversations with individuals versus the way we do protest or the way we do direct action. And so when we do something like a protest or an open rescue, these are actions designed to spark a societal dialogue. So we want to get the media attention. We want to create a buzz on social media. And that's very different from what we're doing when we're having conversations with individuals. Even if you're at a protest and you have a one-to-one conversation with somebody, or if you're in your own home and you're talking to your family, those are conversations you want to have compassionately and openly and with a very systems-focused mentality, and not trying to blame and shame the individual, certainly. And so that is a very important distinction to be made, that if you're in your house and you start raising the placards, as Piers says, to your family members, that's not going to land you on Good Morning Britain the way that they protested. So I think it's the very presence there kind of tells you what that's all about. And then he goes to the bread, though. So because vegans cause harm, therefore it is all up in the air. It's all null and void. None of it matters. I think it really brings up a very important messaging point that, frankly, the animal rights movement has failed on for its entire history. Please, 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 if you're watching this, please listen to me. I promise you this is true. I've seen it time and time again. And this is a very important distinction between promoting veganism and promoting anti-speciesism, promoting individual consumer change within the system, or promoting changing the system itself. Extremely important distinction, because when you have someone who's just a passerby to your message and is only catching a bit of it, if all they're hearing is go make XYZ decisions within our current system that's very speciesist, they're saying, well, that's kind of an arbitrary line to draw. And they're right, frankly, to say like, well, just don't directly consume animals, but all this other harm, animals that are suffering in other ways, you know, pesticides and so on, you kind of ignore that. And then that they're correct in a sense that the vegans are putting people into, here's the perfect pure people who are great, and here are the evil people who are consuming animals. And it's really a false dichotomy, because the bottom line is we're all complicit in various ways in the system around us, as someone like Piers Morgan points out. And so really the way we ought to be responding to these type of kind of gotcha questions where, oh, vegans are hypocrites, somebody wears a leather belt, or there's pesticides, or there's insects killed in crop production, that sort of thing. The way to respond to that argument is with a systemic message, and to say something like, well, you know, you don't have to be perfect to oppose speciesism any more than you have to be perfect to oppose racism or to oppose sexism. And that really gets the conversation kind of moving in that right direction, where that person doesn't feel like they're individually targeted or individually shamed, like, hey, we're in the same boat. We're both causing harm in some ways. We all are. This is a system we were born into. We didn't choose it. So let's work together and let's agree that discrimination is wrong. Let's agree that putting individuals into arbitrary classes and discriminating against them on something as arbitrary as race, as gender, or as species is wrong. And let's fundamentally take an honest look at that and build a better world together.